Well, it's quite appropriate though. With one of the last things we were talking about was binge watching, and one of the main topics for today is in the zeitgeist. Is up there with, if you're into film and you're into TV, it's one of the series. But I've never actually sat and watched more than 2 or 3 episodes together and watched the whole run, and it's Twin Peaks basically. As you probably already know from the title / description / whatever post we put out before releasing this episode. But you know, intrigue.
And it is dun 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 Twin Peaks.
Yeah. See what
Lewis, we practiced that for 43 minutes.
I know, I'm sorry. But yeah, Twin Peaks, cool.
Yeah. So you've only just watched it, yeah? I watched it I didn't watch it at the time. I'm not that old. But I did watch it years ago. The first 2 seasons back to back. I did binge watch it, similar to how you've done it now. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give my quick thoughts, and then we'll see where it takes us, because I don't know how I feel about it overall just yet. So we've spoke about this already in bits, and then we keep going, no, save it for a podcast. It's a good talk, but I can see why there's 2 reactions to this. People either love it or hate it. I mean, I want to be a contrarian and go, I don't know if I love it or hate it, because, you know, that's who I am. But I can definitely understand that reaction.
Yeah.
Because, funnily enough, it ties into WandaVision again as well. I think some people miss the point of it. They go into it expecting this really... I mean, you know, it's from Lynch, albeit one of his earlier big projects. It's going to be this really weird, dark, full horror or full sci-fi thing, and it's not. And then the thing that it masquerades as, then people go into it going, oh, it's just like a really weird sitcom come romantic drama, soap opera.
Yeah.
And it's really dated, and some of the references actually don't match, because sometimes it seems like it's meant to be like this 50s retro thing, and then it's like, oh no, that's just kind of, they're doing the whole small town America, and it's all old fashioned, and it's just a little bit dated. But then it's like, no, it's both of those things, and it's neither of those things.
Yeah.
And at times, for me, I actually think where it tries to get a little more serious or a little more lean into the drama, where people maybe either get switched off or get plugged in, I'm going, this actually feels like a comedy and a parody of both things. And I think Lynch kind of maybe started writing it and was like, are they really giving me studio money to make... Oh, I guess I'll keep going. It feels like one of those projects where this sounds really bad, and this isn't a criticism necessarily. It feels like a big joke a lot of the time.
Well, mate, it's funny you should say that, because I definitely think there are massive elements of that, but I think that's intentional, and I don't think that Lynch is not aware of it. I think that is part of it. Like, you know, that normally when you get something similar-esque in tone to something like Twin Peaks, or the meaning behind something like Twin Peaks, is that the writer / director, the creative side of the project, they're taking you with them on it. But for this, I definitely feel like they're taking you with it, and then they're pointing the finger at you and going, "Look at you! You don't even get it! Like, what? Look at you trying to be all, like smart and intellectual about it, and you don't even fucking get it." And I definitely think, but then that makes me like it even more, that the joke is on us. It is on our expense, not necessarily. We're not going on the journey with them. That's, and I don't necessarily think I got that the first time round that I watched it. It's only getting old, becoming older, and witnessing and watching more the things that influence the style of the show. I mean, Lynch only directed, I think, 6 of the original 2 seasons.
Right. In season 1, I think.
Is it in season 1, maybe? So a lot of people basically came in and directed, and I think it does feel like it does feel like one team has done the whole thing, regardless of how it flips and changes.
Yeah.
I definitely don't. It doesn't for people who haven't watched it, basically the first season and half the second season.
We should say what it's about, shouldn't we? For people who haven't watched it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So the first season and half the second season, essentially, is just a murder mystery on the surface, but there's so much more that's under the surface than in any other show. My joy of Twin Peaks is that Dale Cooper, played by Kyle MacLachlan, he comes into it as the big city FBI guy. He's got the suit on, his hair slicked back, and he's bumping into everything that is the complete opposite of what he represents, or at least what the audience assumes he represents, in Harry Truman, who is the sheriff of Twin Peaks, who is not as refined, maybe. Dale's got his tie, his shirt done up. Harry's a lot more relaxed. And for me, the setup is, those damn FBI agents, they always come in and, big city guys, they pencil pushing, paper shaking, they steal all the credit. There's so many movies where the FBI will come in and take all the credit or take over the case. And that's really what it's playing on, that you're expecting to happen. And then it really doesn't. The relationship between Truman and Coop is so good. It's brilliant to watch how you think that's what's going to happen. It's like, no. Actually, you could probably argue that these guys become best friends.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think that's one of the true testaments to the show for me, that they're so aware of what the audience are going to be thinking going into a certain setup, and then they go, "Oh, you think that? No, we're not doing that." And then I think also they go the opposite way. Like, they'll go, "Oh, you're thinking that? We're not going to do that." But guess what? We went and did what you thought in the first place, just to mess with you, just so you don't get it.
Because then you get the other characters from the FBI who come in. For example, there's the forensic investigator who he brings in a couple of times, who he's like, "This guy's the best. I always get him involved in in murder cases and things." But then Albert. He is the typical, but again, to the point where he's meant to be this really top level serious investigator, and his character's a bit of a joke, and then the sheriff punches him at one point.
Yeah.
It's just all sorts. Which all that stuff of the series, I love it. Series 1, and then the first. I don't even think it's the full first half of season 2, but the first chunk of season 2 is this story.
Of Laura Palmer.
And the investigation, and you get elements of the weird sci-fi stuff, and you get elements of the horror stuff, and it gets to the point where it basically confirms that there are other beings or other things going on, which I don't want to spoil loads, but it's quite an old show. So and again, it's in the zeitgeist so much that it's almost associated as this weird sci-fi trippy show, but actually there's 2 or 3 scenes of the Red Room in the whole run. There's not that much of it. I mean, they're
that
great.
Red Room is but
that's
good.
what I mean. And that almost, I think, harms people's experience of it, because you go in thinking it's all going to be super weird and trippy, and it's like, no, there's some really good sequences, and then a lot of weird commentary and filler in between, and it's strange.
The Black Lodge, the White Lodge, the Red Room. I mean, it's homage is paid to the show. Some of it's like on the nose, like The Simpsons will literally do a whole segment where they're basically in that exact room within the Simpsons universe. But then you look at stuff like the stylings of it with things like the X-Files, and you could even say like Stranger Things. Now, I'm not saying that it completely changed the TV landscape, or that all TV nowadays has, to pay homage and owes so much to Twin Peaks. But it had enough of an influence on enough important creators that nowadays that you can see those elements in there. And I think it's also quite important, and maybe this is a negative thing, but to be aware of the world when Twin Peaks came out. It's not like it came out now or just a couple of years ago where, we digest a lot more weird and oddity things, and, we're a serialized TV show where you don't get a conclusion at the end of the first or second episode, that you're going, oh no, this could be a few seasons before you get any answers. That just didn't exist back in the day. Even on cop shows, it was normally like, yeah, you'd get a run maybe of an emotional story between two of the characters in there, but you wouldn't necessarily get a crime that went on after week after week after week. It would normally wrap it up. So you almost have to imagine when it came out what the world was like, which could be a negative thing, because without that, it's almost more difficult to get somebody who has no direct connection with that time, or doesn't know a lot about that time, to go, oh, do you want to watch this? It's like, well, actually, I'm going to have to sit you down and go through a little bit of, history. A little
bit of setup before we,
which, is good and bad in a way. So I don't think it's definitely not one of those shows you can just pick up, and just start to go with. Like, you can't go in unaware, really.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because anything that's a bit of a mystery and a bit of a crime thing and a bit weird, you think, oh, you kind of want to go in blind and experience it all. And I mean, it'd be hard to have no knowledge of Twin Peaks, I think, at this point, but you almost do need a little bit of, before you jump in, just beware, it'll start to feel like a really rubbish soap opera or a really weird comedy that, like you say, that's mostly intentional, and there's a point to it, and a lot of the time there'll be a payoff to certain characters and certain things. For me, where it started to fall down was after the Laura Palmer story wraps up. Well, it all comes back, but basically once the initial
the initial real world case
is solved, and at the resolution of that, to be fair, there is still the other world element. It is still full magic, sci-fi, horror bonkers, but in terms of the characters experiencing the crime and finding out what happened and saying, right, we know what happened, tick the boxes, dot the I's, cross the T's. After that point, the show almost feels like it's going to go full sci-fi, X-Files style. Oh, we're going to go into all this stuff. There's certain characters and certain things that are mentioned.
The Colonel and the aliens and all that sort of...
and you learn a bit more, and then the show just goes, nope. And then it doesn't even lean into emotional story arcs. It goes full slapstick comedy. There's certain episodes where the whole thing, nothing happens, none of the characters progress, none of the events move along. And it's almost just like a parody of a parody. And it got to the point where I was like, at this point, I believe Lynch wasn't involved, and it was actually the studio. But it felt like an artist kind of smelling their own work a little bit. But that was when Lynch wasn't involved, funnily enough.
It's, with what you just said then, I think it can be summed up with one character, where she fakes her own death and then comes back.
Yeah. There are a few things that really don't age well.
No, really don't age well.
So we find out that David Duchovny looks really good in a dress. To be fair, he's a very handsome fella.
In a weird way, sorry to just cut you off there, but the David Duchovny character coming back into it, if it wasn't played with the humour, that would be fine nowadays. Like, that's a norm. If anything, you could probably look into that deeper and go, right, what's the fallout of the world around him? And they do kind of touch on it a little bit with Coop's character and stuff like that. But for me, the way it feels weird and wrong now is the butt of the joke is that.
Yeah, so
which is like...
His character is... I don't know if he's meant to be transgender or gender fluid or just enjoys women's clothes, which is where it starts to get a little bit murky, because obviously back when this was made, that wasn't as known in the mainstream. There wasn't as much general understanding or even
tolerance,
positive attitudes, and tolerance towards it. And there are bits where it feels very progressive, where you're like, oh, this character really owns that thing about them. And sometimes the butt of the joke is the other characters almost like them and fancy them anyway. But then sometimes the jokes, from both the character's point of view and even the show's point of view, become about David Duchovny's character's
Yeah,
personal
like, doesn't he have
circumstance.
like he has like a gun up his skirt and stuff, and
but it's not even that. I think it's more the. And again, maybe they were pointing out. Maybe it was another parody within parody where they were saying
that
look how people react to
Yeah.
to other people,
and maybe it didn't just land correctly.
and maybe I also had the because people are also easily offended even when that's not the intention. So maybe there's even a little bit of a hair trigger on me being triggered by things, even though I like to think I'm not, going, oh, that doesn't hold up.
But then maybe that goes back into the fact that, you know, we're not meant to necessarily be on the journey with the creators. It's at our expense.
Yeah. So there is that, and then the other one which you mentioned, where it there's no question whether it holds up or not, is one of the characters fakes their own death, and this is a spoiler, but it's also very obvious, which is also why in a way it's even more offensive. A character comes back in makeup pretending to be an Asian businessman. And
we're talking full-on makeup as well, aren't we? And we're talking accents and
that's where it gets to the point where it looks cartoonish. And if it was purely visual, you could start to go, right. It's not right, but in this world, the character is physically disguising who they are for a big reveal. But then, like you say, the accent and it. At first, I was like, I don't know if I can laugh or not, because it's comical in the sense that, wow, okay, so I'm normally going, oh God, snowflakes, everyone's so offended by stuff easily, but then I'm watching this and I'm going, oh man, like, no, actually, there are things out there that you go, yeah, no, you've got a point, actually, yeah, we need to think about things a bit better.
But the thing is, like, were you, at the time when it first aired, was there meant to be that comedy feel to that? Yeah. And this is where... that we don't know. We didn't watch it at the time. We don't know what the feeling was around there. But again, maybe you'd have to sit down with somebody and go, look, this necessarily didn't... At best, it doesn't land correctly. At worst, it's highly offensive and inappropriate. And I'm not sure... Because I think nowadays a lot of intent gets ignored. So what was the intentions? Where was it meant to be offensive, and they're not worried about offending people? Then that's wrong. But people should be allowed to make mistakes, learn from mistakes, and then the whole thing is that the new season's come out and it's 25 years or 26 years later or wherever it was. It's like, yes, you can't judge a show from 26 years ago with 2020 now 2021 eyes. It doesn't work like that. I'm not saying like pretend it didn't happen or. You know, or not digest that it was slightly. I say slightly that it times have changed.
Yeah.
Don't make excuses for it, but also don't punish it for being a product of the time. And in a way,
I actually do think as well. I think that comes down to not landing correctly, because there's an Asian American character in it who, I think in the show at first, I think they make out that she's from Hong Kong and. She doesn't speak English natively, but then I think you find out later on that no, she's fluent. It's fine. It's all another ruse, because all right. So there's two things here. It's falling down the rabbit hole properly. So where it starts to get to the point where I started to struggle with it was where every character suddenly had a hidden agenda, a hidden storyline, a hidden plot. Every character had an affair with every other character, and every character was betraying a different character. Characters that got mentioned once in season 1 as like an offhand, like, oh, the writer must have just put something in. Now they literally come back and they cast the character, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What? And
but that's a soap opera angle, isn't it? And that's what they're leaning into.
Too far. But anyway, but the reason I think the Asian face thing, I think, was a case of it was too on the nose, where it wasn't obvious that they were saying, look at these terrible dramas and soap operas from Once Upon a Time that did this kind of thing. Because I think she's called Josie, the Asian American character from Hong Kong. She's a great character.
Yeah.
Female, Asian. She's like in control. She's got a lot of power within the community, within this area. She's important. there's times when she falls into love interest, but then you find out, oh no, she's got her own stuff going on. There's a whole other storyline in her world, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And they don't actually reference her race or her nationality, apart from literally saying, oh, this is Josie, she's from Hong Kong, and now she owns the business after her husband died, or whatever it is. But then actually it just becomes, oh, she's the most beautiful woman in this state, hands down, and oh yeah, and she's got this great business. She's basically, again, they don't lean into it too much because maybe again it becomes the cliche, but they're basically saying like this logging factory is almost like the life of the town. Like she's in control of what is our industry. So there's this really weird playing of that. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because obviously going into the third season, you almost see the decline of the American dream, and the logging factory or plant or whatever is now not running, and it's almost you can almost look at the opening credits of season 1 and 2 and see how all that now doesn't exist, or doesn't exist in the same way. Yeah. And I think we've spoke about this before, not on the pod. This is why we should never talk ever except when we're recording. When we said it's like the opening credits set the scene of what they would want the show to be, or what the representation of their town would be. Unfortunately, it really isn't that. I mean, we're talking about the weirdness, but we've not even spoken about the log lady, the one who walks around with a lump of wood and talks and has messages from the wood to tell people. And Coop just rolls with that. He rolls with the mysticism. He rolls with the dream interpretation, and anything he's given, he looks at it rather than a jaded FBI agent, almost like with childlike interest.
Yeah,
cups of coffee, pies,
the smell of trees. He's asking everyone, what type of trees are those that I drove past on the way in? And he has the. Let's talk about Coop, because actually, regardless of my mixed feelings about different elements of the shows and where it goes or doesn't go, the one consistent thing of a high quality, it holds up as a character and is just enjoyable, is Coop and his optimism. And like you say, rolling with the punches, literally in some cases. And of the few scenes where you get that little bit of action and a little bit of excitement, he's competent.
Yeah.
He's a company man. He's trained. He's intelligent, and it's not just kicking down doors and shooting everything. He's like, oh no, I can have a conversation with this character and I'll talk him down. And there's all this stuff. But at first it's a little jarring because he's in the car and he's tape recorder going like, look, lovely stop off for food. I must tell people when they come down here and all this. But then actually, like, it becomes one of the standout things of the series is the character.
Yeah.
Brilliant
casting for him, because he looks like what you'd expect an FBI guy to do, but then like he can pull off all the oddities that are going, not just necessarily with the town that he's in, but the oddities that he has as a person, that he's obviously highly studied in, like the plight of the Tibetan people, like that he's so involved. Well, he likes to think
he's so passionate about it, isn't he?
But he's a great character, and I think they were, the town was really lucky that he was the one who got assigned to that case.
Just a bit.
But it's a very odd show, and it's interesting because I think knowing that we were going to do this episode, it's made me want to carry on. I didn't get all the way through the third season,
right? But
now, having looked back on it, it makes me want to, if anything, just to finish it off as a completist, just to get it done with. Yeah, to get it done with. I don't mean it like that. So
I know what you're saying though. To have the conclusion and to have the story seen out till the end, because I don't think we've got loads more to say without just fully spoiling things. But the season 2 finale, where it starts to go back to, it is still linked to the first storyline. There is still stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's a great sequence in the Red Room where you realise it's not just this one Red Room. It's a series of rooms within this weird realm, this weird little almost pocket universe. Again, they never fully explain what it is and isn't. And again, that's not a spoiler. It's fairly obvious. But there's this great episode and this great long scene of this stuff happening, and then the intercut, like the comedy cutbacks to other characters reacting, and it really took away what for me would have been, all right, here we go, this is the big, it's all right, it's paying off, I'm back in.
Right.
And then the very, very end reveal, I'm like, wow, if you have any slight love for this series, you've been waiting a long time to find out what that means.
Wow,
I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a big, and out of nowhere as well. You don't, it's all off screen, which feels a little bit unearned by that point, but
I feel for Coop. I felt for Coop. Really do, like this thing.
It's funny because I think a good summary of it is when you're saying about like the city slicker, the big city guy. Coop is the opposite of that. Not in just his mannerisms and he accepts things, but these small town people, a lot of them, traditionally it's like this cold, impartial, intelligent person from the city and these almost dumb but humble human people. But
salt of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter how human and down to earth and wacky they are, he's still the humanity of the show. He really is. Despite
he's the linchpin, isn't he? That everything that moves around. Yeah.
Lynch.
Because it's the guy, him and Frost made the show, and it's his surname, and it's
Nick Frost. But you didn't know that. Yeah. I don't actually know which Frost it is.
Yeah, you know what? Like Nick Frost, like now he's not got like Simon Pegg holding him back. Nick Frost has made Frost and Lynch making that show was really good.
Yeah, he went back in time and he made. It's memorable.
It's memorable. Yeah.
It's not as universally loved as the Blood and Cornetto trilogy, but it's pretty good. But yeah, I almost originally said let's have this conversation as. We'll get to the point where you pitch to me almost the value of sticking with it and watching season 3, but just talking about it at length after I was speaking for a couple minutes, no, save it. I'm almost back in for, I'm definitely going to watch season 3. I want to see it to the end. And the same thing, like you say, even just to get the closure of, okay, what does that season 2 finale mean? Is it going to be a big horrible ending? And mutual friend of ours, your friend Alex, who's a massive Lynch fan, I'm sure he'll be on with us at some point talking about Lynch and everything else. He pointed out to me that one of the things that put people off a little bit with season 3 was a bit like the first season. None of the episodes alone, or none of the parts of it alone, wrapped up any story or moved things properly. It's almost like an 8 to 10 hour film. Yeah. And now watching it back, being able to binge it, where the first 2 seasons maybe benefited from a little break, because I had to take a couple little breaks, I'll be honest. I think that the third season does benefit of watch as much in one hit as you can, and really just let it just wash over you.
I think it's worth us both watching it, me finishing it and you watching the whole thing, and then coming back to a sort of, what do you think of it now? Has it changed the overall feel to the show for you? But yeah, I can't. I feel like it. I think we could probably do 4, 5, 6 2-hour podcasts on this.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty much as much as I want to say about it without ruining absolutely everything and making it completely impossible for anyone to ever watch it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's
apart from Ray Wise plays Laura Palmer's dad, Leland. I think he's so good in it. He's given so much room to flex his acting chops, and he just smashes it. Like he's such a joy to watch.
This is the last thing I'll say about it. For anyone who's into film and TV, especially of a certain era, it's great for people like him where you'll know, even if you don't know them by name, you'll go, that's that guy from probably 1,000 films I've watched when I was younger.
Yeah.
Or that's that woman from all those sitcoms back in the day. There's loads of actors in it who either during or before this series were clearly very big, and there was a point of, let's get the name in, they want to get involved. But then there's also people who since this have become almost household names. And I mean, not all great actors. Some of them have kind of really fell off the rails a bit since, but it's fun to watch as a cinephile going, there's a lot of proper actors in this.
Well, I think a funny one is Harry Truman, the sheriff. He doesn't act anymore.
Yeah.
Like he just
too much.
too much.
Too
much of an experience for him. But yeah, it's he doesn't act, and I think I might have to check this when we come back and talk about season 3. But that's why he is not in season 3.
Oh, spoiler alert.
But I didn't say his character wasn't.
Oh no, I hate when they recast things. It's the worst. Just keep the character out.
Well, I'm not saying anything. I'm not spoiling anything for you.
Oh, right, we'll do it now. The season 3 wrap up. Yeah, it was all right. Right. I didn't watch it.
Classic.
No, I'm joking.
But yeah, I think that kind of puts a nice little bow on it for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, do you think you're gonna watch it? Aren't you?
Yeah. I'll watch season 3, and then I'd be interested. Anybody listening to this, watching this, either when it comes out or even way down the line in the future, get in touch with us, instagram.com/DRHPod, and let us know what you think. Our own socials are on there as well. There's actually, now that I've watched it properly, there's a lot of people in my own life who I talk to about films and stuff who I've never spoke to about Twin Peaks, so I don't know, are they in or out? Have they actually watched it? Or, like me, is their knowledge of it, despite being vast, all through osmosis, all through memes and references and that sort of stuff. Cool. Any last thoughts, Charlie?
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Bye.
Bye.
A big howdy and a big thank you to everybody who has watched or listened. If you enjoy our podcast, please hit follow, like and subscribe, whatever platform you're on. Rate us and review us, turn on notifications for our next episode, and you'll be really helping us to grow and keep building a great community. You can get in touch with us on all the socials via @DRHPod, or for us individually, it's Lewis Alex Ryan and _Charlie Fallows. Horror bonkers.